Hi guys, today I wanted to make a review video of a lovely little novella that I read in November, Waiting for the Flood by Alexis Hall. This is a very slow, quiet and introspective male-male romance. It is not a steamy one if that's a concern. There is one sex scene and it's fade to black, so. The story is set in contemporary Oxford where a flood is slowly building, as it does periodically in autumn. And our protagonist is Edwin Tully, who owns a townhouse which he is going to have to defend against the encroaching water. Edwin is in his late 20s and he works in manuscript conservation for the Bodleian Library. He is somewhat of a recluse. Apart from work, which in his case is also a lonesome affair, apart from that he only ever really interacts with his elderly next-door neighbor. One reason why he often avoids people is that he has a stutter, and while that is in itself a source of some frustration to him, understandably, an even bigger source of frustration is how people treat him because of the stutter. People often dismiss him right away as somewhat stupid and not worthy of their attention just because of his stutter. They don't listen to what he actually says, they don't give him a chance and enough time to say his part. All they hear is the stutter, and that is enough for them to dismiss him right away as not worthy of their time. And that is all the more infuriating as he is a highly educated person and he is also very attentive and a critical thinker, and he would actually be a very interesting conversation partner if people cared to listen. But what's more is that Edwin's partner of 10 years left him quite suddenly 2 years earlier. He was Edwin's first boyfriend and they met shortly after Edwin moved to Oxford for university. So he played a huge part in Edwin's development as a person, and he was Edwin's single most meaningful social interaction for a decade. And the result of that is that Edwin has only ever really seen himself through his partner's eyes. He has only ever defined himself as what he was to his partner. So when his partner stopped seeing him as interesting and desirable, Edwin began to think of himself as uninteresting and undesirable. And he has a hard time coming to terms with the idea that he might not be so for everybody, and that he wouldn't be a total disappointment to just about anybody once they got to know him better. And then one day there is this new flood in the making in Oxford, and Edwin has to leave his house and, horror of horrors, interact with the flood management guys. And one of those guys happens to be happy-go-lucky Irish engineer Adam, who inexplicably takes an instant liking to Edwin and even seems to seek out his company from then on and maybe even flirt with Edwin a little. And that sends Edwin into a spiral of stress and existential crisis, because why would somebody like Adam be interested in Edwin, and why would he want to seek out his company, and who and what is Edwin even? And how the story then unfolds, the story of how Edwin comes to terms with himself and with his situation, is just the sweetest and warmest and most compassionate and comforting thing ever written, or at least that's what it feels to me at the moment, and it just made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And the main character, Edwin, is such a darling and not at all tedious or uninteresting. And he is also very relatable to me in the way that his mind works in such a way that very often just random words and observations will send him down a rabbit hole of associations and scholarly trivia, from etymology to art history. And on top of that, the atmosphere in this novella is amazing. Alexis Hall really knows how to paint a scene and how to weave that in realistically with a first-person narration. And the particular situation here of the emergency and the general state of alertness give the setting an atmosphere of almost heightened realness, and everything seems a bit starker than normal and a bit more noteworthy because of the emergency. And that makes this very ordinary suburban setting seem just a little bit alien and bordering on magical and a bit fairy tale-like. And this makes for, all in all, just such a lovely read and a perfect read for a bleak and rainy day. And since you're here and you are probably interested in this kind of thing if you've made it this far, I want to recommend a TV show. So 2 weeks ago I noticed that season 4 of Eastsiders is now on Netflix. Eastsiders is a TV show about a gay couple and the trials that they go through with their relationship. And there are some more gay relationships in the background and some straight couples and some lesbian couples as well, and a drag queen in a very prominent role. The show has no shortage of absurd and funny situations and characters, but it is overall realistic and poignant and candid without trying too hard to be oh so gritty or scandalous just for the sake of being scandalous. So if, like me, you didn't particularly adore Queer as Folk, you might still like this one. I'm recommending this to you now because I only recently realized what a small production this is. When I discovered it in 2018, it was already on Netflix, and I had no idea that it was originally a small budget or no budget web series that the director and lead actor and his boyfriend shot in their living room with a cast and crew made up of their friends who got no money out of it. It has since then grown bigger, but through crowdfunding. So it is a total love project and the producer's baby. And the best thing is, you would never guess that from the quality of the acting. There's some top-notch acting in there. So if at some point or other you feel like you've had enough of adaptations of A Christmas Carol and of third-rate holiday movies, perhaps give this a chance. It begins with a Christmas tree as well.